We have one of our own master gardeners, Jesse Parker. Yeah, he's given up his time. So Jesse is owner of Hot Springs Irrigation Experts. He has more than 25 years of experience in the landscape and irrigation industry. Raised near Mena, Arkansas, Jesse moved to California at 13, where he became a licensed landscape contractor and specialized in irrigation design and water-efficient landscapes. After returning to Arkansas, he earned his Arkansas Backflow Tester certification and joined the Garland County Master Gardeners. So Jesse enjoys sharing practical, hands-on knowledge that help gardeners understand how proper irrigation design, matched precipitation, pressure regulation, and smart irrigation technology create healthier landscapes while conserving water. So if everyone would welcome Jesse Parker.
Well, that guy sounds pretty smart. Keep up with him. Again, my name is Jesse Parker. This class that I'm sharing with you guys today is a little bit higher level. So we're not going to be dealing with a whole bunch of pieces. We're going to talk about some principles with irrigation and show you some of the pieces that take care of those principles. So hopefully that'll be clear. Arkansas, one of the fun facts that when I moved back here, I had no idea what it was when I was a little kid, but we're actually the 8th wettest state in the country. The area that I left from, our average rainfall was 18 inches a year. Here we're in the 50s to 60s. So it's a huge difference. It's like, why do we even need irrigation here? The problem is that the rain doesn't come when we need to get it to the plants. Yeah. So that's why we would supplement with irrigation. So the objective of this presentation, I just want you to understand the basics of irrigation and why it's important. Learn how to calculate water needs and schedules effectively. Explore different irrigation types, when to use them, and discover tools like smart controllers to optimize your system. Basic questions for irrigation. What is irrigation? How much water should be applied? How often should water be applied? And how long should you run the system? I always let people know the number one question I get in irrigation is, how much does it cost? The number two question is, how long do I run the system for? And of course, the answer is always, depends. What is irrigation? Irrigation is a process of supplying water to plants or crops to help them grow, typically through systems like pipes, sprinklers, drip lines, and hoses. Real simple stuff. I love this picture. I stole this from somebody else. I can't even take credit for it. But he's irrigating. That's as simple as it can get. But that's a great example of there's lots of different ways to achieve the goal that we want to do. Now we're going to get into technical stuff. Again, this isn't irrigation basics. This is a different, or the next level, if you will, of the class. Precipitation rate. Does everybody know what precipitation is?
Rain.
Water.
Rain, perfect. All we're trying to do is duplicate a precipitation rate that's measurable with the irrigation system. This is a critical component. What it does is it allows us to go, how long do we run the system? It depends on the precipitation rate. And guess what the manufacturers and of all the different irrigation components did? They made them all different. But there's reasons for that. So what we want to do with the efficiency, so ensures water is applied at a rate the soil can absorb it, avoiding runoff. This is a critical thing with irrigation. Anytime we're doing irrigation, we always do what's called a jar test. I know there's a lot of master gardeners in here. Anybody know what a jar test is? No? Nobody?
Yeah.
Set the jar out underneath the sprinkler system and see how much it collects.
That's a catch can test. Good answer, though. We'll jump ahead just to show you. So I have the actual catch can test kit up here just so you can see an example of it. So that's a great answer. A jar test is for the soil. What we do is we take a little bit of soil from a couple of spots in the yard, Put it into a really fancy mason jar, put a lid on it with some water inside of it. If you have clay, a little pinch of dish soap. And what that'll do is it's a surfactant, it'll break it up, shake it up, and then set it down and let it sit. What will happen is it'll settle out in different layers, and it'll tell us what the soil type is. Clay soil, how fast can I put water onto clay soil versus how fast do I need to put it onto sandy soil? Does that make sense?
We have a lot of rocks here, as I'm sure you found out.
Yes, I found out the hard way. Think about it this way, a rock is just a large piece of sand. So rocky soil will typically drain faster unless it's got clay mixed in with it. So that's why doing the jar test is so important, because then that'll tell us, hey, how fast can we actually put the water down? And then we would know our precipitation rates, which will help us to prevent the over or underwatering, and then scheduling. It's in red letters there for a reason. It helps calculate how long to run the system. So precipitation rate. What's nice is every manufacturer actually has a chart on how to get that figured out. ET. I know there's a lot of master gardeners in here. This is a critical thing. I think it should be taught at every level. This is everything as far as your plants go. I always use the example here because it's very prevalent. A hydrangea. You see the leaves on these hot days as they'll lay down right next to an azalea that doesn't even look like it's bothered. So evapotranspiration is basically the evaporation that comes out of the soil or a body of water or whatever. And transpiration, if you remember from your master gardener classes, the stomatas on a plant will open up and actually release water out of them. So these two combined together gives us ET. It's very important to know the ET because that's the water that we want to replace. That's the water we're losing and needs to be replaced. So just a quick definition, total water loss from the Earth's surface, water vapor from soil, water bodies, etc., water vapor released by plants through their leaves. Sunny spot versus a shady spot, is that going to have a higher ET or a lower ET? Right, exactly. So we want to think all of those things go into it, plus the vegetation type we just talked about with the hydrangea azalea example. This is unfortunately not information that's readily available for Arkansas. We're literally on the line. The technology is coming online. This can be available to us hopefully soon. This is the evapotranspiration rates versus the rainfall historically through the year in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So I have access to specialized information that I can't give out to you, but I would love to if I could. So I went ahead and copied it for you so you can see. That 6.94, that is the ET, or the evapotranspiration number, for the month of July. If you look down below, on average, 4.34 of rainfall. So we look at that, those two numbers, what do they tell us? Number one, if you look at the blue lines going up and down, that's showing us what we would typically see as far as loss given out of the soil and given out of the plants. Look at what it does during the summertime. Where do you think the gap is for running our irrigation? It's interactive, if you like. Does that make sense, or is that clear as mud? The gap between the 6.9 to 4.3. I'm going to jump into types of irrigation because I want you to stew on that because that's a difficult concept for some people, including myself. Pop-up sprays. I always bring a couple of different samples just because I want people to understand that just because it says it's a pop-up spray, there's lots of different attachments to it. And yes, I have cool tools to work on stuff. This is just a blowout feature. So you install a sprinkler head and then you're able to clean it out. Now we have all these different types of nozzles to put into this particular thing. So this is just a piece of it. So we were talking about the precipitation rates. Guess how I can change the precipitation rate on just this piece right here? All these different nozzles have different precipitation rates. Pop-up rotors. Rotors were a game changer in the industry in the 1980 and 81. They allowed a single stream of water to be applied in a certain spot over a large distance. It was a big innovation in irrigation. I'm going to show you one thing. So if you guys will bear with me, hopefully you're okay with. I always like this tool because it shocks people. This is the most prevalent type of sprinkler head in the hot springs area especially. This specialized tool, which is for installing nozzles onto rotors, has this little thing right here. Anybody know what that is? It's called a bubble level. When a head is sitting like this, if you can see the pattern, see how that is coming out in that V shape on the screen there? Guess what happens if this thing is pushed back to that pattern that you see out of that head? It goes up. What does it do to the trajectory or the way the water's put onto your soil? It changes it. So by just changing this, we change how water is applied. It is a big deal to have your sprinkler head straight up and down. Big deal. This is exciting. This incorporates a pop-up with a rotor, and it does it in multiple spots. This is an example of what you're seeing on there. When the water's pressure comes on, you see how that thing pops up? Each individual spot on this throws at a different spot. So we were talking about that trajectory. That determines how far the water goes. As you can see on these, it will throw it right up against it on one of the streams, throw it out 20 feet on another one, depending on the model that you have. The other thing with these is they apply the water really slow, really, really slow. So these were literally like going from a carbureted engine to fuel injection. That's how far it pushed the technology in irrigation. That fantastic product. Emitter tubing. Is anybody familiar with this? And I don't call it drip because it's technically not. It uses drip emitters, but it uses it designed specifically for soil types, flow rates, pressure compensating, and a check valve. Everybody know what a check valve does? You ever see that spot on the bottom of your hill where the water just runs out of the bottom of the sprinkler head? A check valve in the system will hold that water in so that we're not just dumping it out and flooding an area out. What's unique about this particular product, and all the manufacturers are now doing them, is that based on the soil conditions, we can get different flow rates in the emitters and different row spacings. You see how I've kept those row spaces very tight? They're all uniform. It'll give me a precise precipitation rate. It's a fantastic product. It's a little labor intensive to install. I'm not gonna trick you and tell you that it's easy to put down, but once it's down, it has very long warranty life on it, and more importantly, it distributes the water almost perfectly without any loss.
Is that copper tubing? What is that?
It is literally the same tubing that you see everywhere. So the tubing that you see, it's what it is, it's a 17 mil, and it's a poly tubing. So the emitter is built into the inside of the tubing itself. And again, after we do that jar test, then we can take that information and go, okay, I want to put the water down at 0.26 inches or gallons per hour, all the way up to 0.9, so almost a gallon an hour. So there's that big of a gap with several in between. And then they'll space it out even further. This is the confusing thing, so I'll go ahead and try to explain it. If you have clay soil, do I want to put the water on fast or slow? Slow. This situation, I want to put it on slow, but I also want to spread it way out. And I apologize, I should probably include a slide. So I always ask the trick question when I'm doing one of these classes, does water move uphill? It's a trick question.
It's gotta be yes.
Have you ever seen an oil burning lamp? How does that wick move that oil up that?
Draws it up.
It's called capillary action. So that's what this is doing in your soil. It's using capillary action to move the water, literally molecule by molecule. And it's amazing, if you apply it correctly to the soil, it'll spread out, and the water and wetting pattern will be a certain depth and a certain spread, depending on what it is.
Do you put that all over your yard?
You can. This is a good example right here. This is a raised bed. This was a project that I did in California. That tree that's there is an amazing lemon tree that has been there for 45 years, just a fantastic. So it's essentially a pot though, if you think about it. So we put the water a little bit tighter, a little bit closer together because of that situation and the sun exposure as well. So did I answer the question or not?
No.
Try me again.
Okay, well, I have those pop-up sprinklers in my yard.
Yeah.
In a system with a timer, a rainwater system.
Uh-huh.
So would you put that underneath the grass or the mulch or whatever in your whole yard?
Yes. I have whole properties that's all it is. It's actually installed below the grass as well. Now it's a different product because it has a copper infused into the emitter itself. And the reason why it has copper is copper will resist root growth into it.
You won't have any evaporation.
Hired, come on up. When can you start?
I mean, it's expensive to water your yard with those pop-up.
Right.
Even though I have 2 meters, because water is expensive here in Hot Springs. But that just would just go right into the ground.
And more importantly, this is again, we're getting into a higher level concept. So there's a concept with the precipitation rate where we'll test and see what that is. The reason why you do so many of the catch cans is because we want to test it in different locations around the property. And what you'll find is that you'll have different depths. And that's called distribution uniformity. So because those pop up and no one is perfect or setup is perfect, you don't have an even coverage throughout that precipitation rate. So again, this is next level stuff, but that's why you take multiple readings in multiple spots because it's not. Guess what you have to do? ET says you need to replace this much. My system supposed to do this, but it's actually not. Now we're adjusting the runtime, and that's what creates wet spots. It's what creates dry spots in your property. It's almost always the distribution uniformity. But more importantly, to your point, is that the evaporation loss from throwing the water in the air is crazy. I mean, when we start looking at the math on it, you'd be surprised how much of a gallon. They're designed, this manufacturer right here is designed, if it puts 1 gallon through it, you're wasting half of it. Half of it. Where these guys were getting into 70%, we're getting 70% of the water and only losing 30. That system right there is 98. It's as efficient as it gets.
Yeah.
More importantly, you start putting mulch on it, you can even adjust it down. I mean, there's a lot of places where we didn't even put the amount of water that equaled the ET. So we were losing this much, and I didn't even have to put that much to replace it because you don't lose it. It's holding it.
Would it go under sod?
It is. There's a product. That's a technique that you have to follow, but it works great under grass. Again, we're high level, but there's some really cool products out there that will do fun stuff. Drip emitters, I always show these because this is what most people think of when they think of a drip emitter. It's something that's got all that spaghetti running all over the place. It's kind of a mess. There's a great application for it though. If we have an area that's on the back 40 and stuff's spread out, this is a great way to get water to an area and have minimal effort put into it. It's a really cost-effective method as well. So again, the products all have different purposes, and what we've done and the mistakes that we've made from lack of education for all of us is that we've put them in the wrong application and we don't get very good results. Oh, it doesn't work. Well, if we get the right product in the right place, it really is effective. So it depends how much should be applied, turf or plant variety. So if we were running those tubes underneath the lawn versus doing it in the bed areas where you have 6 inches of mulch, same exact setup, but they would be ran for different times just because of the exposure and the plant type. Soil type and drainage, we already talked about that. The ET rates, system type, a general guideline is a warm season grass needs about 1 inch of water a week. This right here is kind of what the science is saying. I think that number is totally subjective. If you have really clay soil, then we have to do it in very, very short bursts and multiple times. 6 to 8 inches deep. Some of you know that's not going to happen. Best times to water, early morning. Again, with the irrigation practices that I see here, it's extremely humid here, and we've got tons and tons of problems with fungus. And it's like just doing this little step here, it makes a huge difference. It gives those leaves a chance to dry out. It gives us an opportunity to not have so much fungus and use so many chemicals on there, excuse me. Okay time is a little bit later in the evening. I think during this time of year, absolutely do not water there unless you have something that's in major stress. A lot of times, the hydrangeas, for example, you'll see them wilted out and laying down. That's actually the plant's defense mechanism. It's hiding its leaf a little bit. If you come back out in the morning because you didn't get the hose to it, it'll be standing back up because it's had a chance to refill. So there's actually more plant deaths, and this is a statistic from UC Davis, which is in California, a huge ag school. 90% of all plant deaths from water are from overwatering. And I find that to be true in the 20 plus years I have in the field. Poor choice is during the day, mainly because you have that sun hitting, so you have solar radiation getting on those leaves, and it will basically work like a magnifying glass and magnify the water and burn leaves. Does that make sense to everybody? The good old rain bird.
Yeah.
Most people know what this is. We just want to understand how much water is needed in the landscape, and it's not a set it and forget it approach with these guys. You know, there's all these options on there. What I always like to show about this picture right here, if we look over where it says pass, see that little lever where can you guys see the A there? It actually says A, B, C. What that is, there's 3 separate controllers all built into one. And it has an amazing ability to be able to go, what time is it? And do I turn on a valve? That's all that controller is doing all day long. And if we set that up, we can have 3 totally different systems for different times in the season. I'm running A or B this year, or I'm doing it for beds, containers, lawns. So really, really nice. These are good controllers. Smart controllers, my favorite stuff. I have about 53 of these, of this particular model that I can monitor as well as the client can. I always tell everybody, this is not a smart controller. It's only as smart as the numbers that we put into it. And by knowing those numbers in the field, which we're going to work on next, that's how this thing really works. What's unique about these is this is getting real-time data, but it'll adjust itself up and down. It'll water more when the ET is higher, and it'll water less when the ET is higher. Have a rain event, it shuts itself off. That earlier slide that we were looking at, I'm going to bounce ahead. The earlier thing that we were looking at was basically, I don't know how to explain it the best. The ET and the rain events, that rain event is basically showing an average of 4 inches for the month of July. When does it happen though during the month? So that's when we have it scheduled for Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It rained Monday, and now we've irrigated. So we didn't even get the benefit of the rain because it all ran off. So that's one thing where this thing will turn off during rain events, but then kick back into the schedule so that you're not overwatering during times and actually getting the benefit of the rain events that happen. Maintenance, unfortunately, like all things in life, you got to check on stuff. I always recommend at least an annual tune-up just to kind of get you started during the beginning of the year. Inspect and repair sprinkler heads, checks for leaks and clogs. Make sure they're standing upright. That's super important. Adjust the system to seasonal changes. So that's what we were talking about with that controller, is turning that thing up and down based on what's actually happening with the weather. And then winterizing the system, I think everybody in the last 5 years here has found out that sometimes it gets cold and we can't have stuff outside. So we were talking about the ET and the rainfall. This is for July. we're gonna do an irrigation schedule, and based on some feedback, we're gonna add a little bit of information. This is a precipitation rate chart for this type of product right here. We're gonna use the 180-degree arc. Can everybody see that okay? 30 PSI, that is the optimum pressure for most spray nozzles. 30 PSI tells me my flow, and then it tells me what my inches per hour are. So you see that inches per hour up at the top? Does everybody see that? 1.58 inches. So in an hour of running this, if it's perfect conditions, I should be putting down 1.58 inches of water. Does that make sense? Every sprinkle nozzle is like that. That's why it's super important to understand what you have. This is very fast in my opinion. So everybody that has those sprays that are just blowing out there in that full pattern, that's the kind of water that you're putting down with most of the products. It's very fast to apply water that fast. So the math that we're going to do, 6.94, does everybody understand that's the ET? So that's what we're losing. This is what we're trying to go, okay, how do we cover it with irrigation? We get on average 4 inches. So what we need to do for the month is 2.6 inches of irrigation. The system does the 1.58 inches per hour runtime. Is everybody with me? This is where I lost all the students in Master Gardener class. So I'm showing the math this time. Everybody asks, how do we do the runtime? This is how. We take the 2.6 inches that we need to put down. We divide it by the 1.58. That's a spray head with this nozzle. And then that gives us an answer. Do you see that how low that number is? We only need to run this thing for less than 2 hours, the whole entire month. The whole entire month. We divide it by 60 to get it back to minutes. That gives me the 98 minutes for the month. We're watering 3 days a week. We've got 4 weeks in the month. I have it running 12 times during the course of the month. We take the 12 times, divide it by the minutes that we need to do. The spray heads, most people will go, oh, you need to run them for about 10 minutes. That's where that number comes from. Does that make sense? Is that a little bit clearer this time? Okay. Guess what? Now we're going to do it on a different one. A rotor applies water at a different rate. It's actually a little bit slower. It makes sense. You've got a full pattern. If we have a 180 or a half head, full pattern, all the water's coming out. This is only putting water where it's at. So that's only in that stripe. It's only in that stripe. So think about it as we're putting more water through it, but we're only applying it in one particular spot. Same number, so we're using the 2.6. We're still doing that, but this time we're dividing it by 0.48 inches. So that's what a rotor nozzle does approximately. That gives us 5.4 hours. Again, we're multiplying it by 60 to get us back to the minutes because that's what you're going to put in your controller. 325 minutes for the month, same 3 days, same 4 weeks, gives us 12. 325 minutes divided by 12 times is 27 minutes. Everybody's probably heard you need to run for about 30 minutes. That's where the number came from. I think that's exciting because then there's no guessing.
Jesse, I got a question.
Please.
Is that the same for 360 versus just the little irrigator you're trying to?
Just so everybody knows, he's a landscape irrigation. So the answer is no. I always show this. I was going to share this, but that's an unbelievably good question. Has anybody ever seen this? Comes with this. The manufacturer puts these two together, and when you buy this, it comes with all these different nozzles. All these nozzles are an option to fit into here. We're talking about spray patterns. Does that make sense to everybody? Spray pattern?
Yeah.
It's a quarter, it's a half, it's a full circle. If I'm putting 1 gallon through this and running it on a quarter, how many gallons should I put through it if I'm running it on a half? So you got a quarter, 1 gallon, now we're doing half, so we need to put twice the amount of water through it. So guess what the nozzles need to be on the halves? The 2s, not the 1s. If I got a quarter, I've got a 1 gallon through there. The half, I've got a 2 gallon. Now what happens if we have a full circle on the same one? Thank you. I've never seen any place that I've ever inspected that has that correct. And that's how you make these be the magic that they were. They really changed the industry because of the way they apply water. And then we mess up one thing and it ruins your distribution and your precipitation rate. Ruins it. Great question. I don't know why this cut off, but what we have here is one of the old impacts. Everybody knows the original patent for that was in 1933. It started a company called Rainbird with that. And it was an amazing innovation for agricultural fields. Not so much for your lawn. So when it came out, it was a big deal. But they have that mixed with a spray head, which you can't see on the slide. I'm not sure what happened there. So this is, if you don't get anything else from today, which is quite possible with me teaching it, don't mix sprinkler types. If you have those impacts, okay, only use impacts. If you have those sprays, there's no rotors on there with it. Anytime you mix them, you can see the difference in the numbers that we were showing about how long to run them. If I have a rotor and a spray head on the same one, you saw the times? Does anybody remember what they were? 8 minutes for this one and 27 for this one. How long do you run it for if you have them together? And then you're going to have a flooded spot where the spray head is. If you run it so you don't have a flooded spot where the spray head is, then you don't have enough water where the rotor is. Anybody have that situation? A little too wet over here, a little too dry over there. Happens a lot. Final thoughts. For efficient irrigation for thriving landscapes, understand the water needs. Do I have a whole bunch of azaleas or do I have a whole bunch of hydrangeas? Do I have a lawn that's in full sun that needs more water than you would normally put in those bed areas? Just understanding your water needs. Use the right product for the application. So we're talking about the differences between clay soil versus a sandy soil. We want to put it on faster. Guess what? That 1.58 inches is probably the right product for a sandy soil. Versus we need something that puts the water on really slow because we have clay. This would be a better product because it applies it so much more slowly. Regularly maintain your system. You don't have to get a level, but dang it, straighten your heads up. It's a big deal. Start with a smart irrigation plan today and save water and money. This is one thing I always want to end with on the water and money part of it. The amount that the materials cost now, we want to get into the labor aspect of it. You don't get a return on your investment of just changing these out, and it saves you this many gallons on your watering. You don't see the money off your bill. Where you see the difference is in the health of the garden. At the end of the day, nobody really cares about this stuff. We want to have pretty plants. That's what we're doing this for. We want to have good soil and great plants, and that's how we achieve it, is by balancing the system out, applying it correctly. The amount of money that you'll save on fertilizers, on fungicides, all those things, you'll be really surprised at how much you spend over time on that kind of stuff. That's where the real savings is. That's the end of the show. I like to open up the last little bit of it for questions because I know that someone had one back there that I missed. And
Already.
Well, I have two questions.
all right, let's go.
The one that's called the emitter, like, what keeps, like, the soil and stuff from, I'm guessing it has little holes that it, like, just, like, what keeps it from getting clogged if there's dirt back on?
That particular product has what's called a double flush system. So inside the tubing itself, you first of all drip irrigation or emitter tubing should be ran with a filter.